Alright, so today we're going to be talking about the topic of Itachi versus Nagato. Now, today I'm joined with my good friend, Gritty, who also helps me edit a lot of my videos, so definitely be sure to go check him out before you even start the video.
Hello everyone! It is great being here with my boy. We wanted to do this for a while now, but life had to strike. Exams, illnesses, surgeries we're not very proud of.
Now, due to time discrepancies, we're each going to be talking about different sets of fights between these two tanks, and hopefully we can kind of settle some of the debates between these two in the community. But first of all, definitely be sure to drop a like, comment, subscribe, and let's jump straight into it.
Okay, wait, before we get deep into this, I know somebody will call us out for not talking about the biggest elephant in the room, the Izanami. Look, I don't personally know Kishimoto. My boy here doesn't have him on speed dial. There is a lot us as fans don't know. Would Izanami affect all of the paths of pain? Would it reach Nagato? Can it work on good guy Nagato after he got talk no jutsu'd like there's no tomorrow? We cannot answer these questions, so we're just gonna pretend it doesn't exist.
First of all, we're going to be talking about Itachi versus Nagato as majority of the franchise until the point of his death. You know, we've been kind of watching a weakened Itachi perform some of these amazing feats, right? So let's talk for a second about how Itachi's weakened, right? First of all, he's suffering from near blindness, as by the time he fought Sasuke, he was, nearly exhausted of all of his Mangekyo abilities. On top of the fact that he was also physically coughing up blood and had acute exhaustion, so prolonged altercations were very difficult for him at the time. Nagato, on the other hand, initially utilized the Paths of Pain for most of his appearances, because in the fight against Hanzo, he accidentally summoned the Gedo statue and got these chakra rods stabbed into his back and caused him to be very skinny, sick, and virtually immobile, on top of the fact that his legs were also burned as well. For the sake of this fight, let's assume that mobility in the rods won't be too much of an issue. So because we're not including the Paths of Pain in this altercation, he would have to use physical combat, so if he couldn't fight, obviously he would lose. And Edo Nagato gives us a pretty good indication on how this fight may go, as they've met before. But in this scenario, Itachi has very limited chakra, is much slower, prone to exhaustion, and can't really use his Mangekyo abilities too much. The Rinnegan is also very draining on chakra, but keep in mind Nagato's an Uzumaki, and he has very, very large chakra reserve, so this is not too much of an issue for him in particular. Now, the way that this fight shapes out to be leads me to believe that Nagato won't really have too much of an issue with Itachi here. Being able to use all the abilities of the Paths of Pain essentially simultaneously would make it very easy for Nagato to, close or widen the distance between them, with his attractive or repulsive forces using Shinra Tensei, and on top of all of his summons, etc. Itachi's best bet in this fight would be to use Tsukuyomi or the Totsuka Blade, which was used to beat Edo and Nagato initially. Although Itachi is much weaker in this scenario, those are his two get-out-of-jail-free cards, almost. As far as the Totsuka Blade is concerned, it's highly probable that Nagato would be fast enough to avoid it, as even KCM Naruto and B weren't doing so great in their Edo altercation, and we know that Edo physically nerfs people, but does give him unlimited chakra. And it's also worthy to keep in mind that they did not have killer intent towards him, but the fact still stands. The infinite Tsukuyomi may also be countered by Nagato if he uses summons with shared vision. Itachi probably wouldn't be able to use Tsukuyomi on multiple beings at once. I mean, he can barely do it on one person at a time. Also, Itachi could use Amaterasu on some of the summons as shown in the anime during their Edo altercation, but once again, being nerfed by near blindness and sickness, he wouldn't have the luxury of taking advantage of all these techniques simultaneously without having the drawbacks. So I think it's pretty safe to assume that after maybe one or two uses of the Mangekyo Sharingan, he's going to be pretty burnt out and exhausted, and ultimately Nagato's going to take the dub here.
Alright, so up next we have Itachi versus Pain. This one is kinda complicated. Not. So Itachi's gonna kick off this fight with Tsukuyomi. Here's the problem. Knowing how Tsukuyomi functions, it wouldn't work on the Pains because they're machines. Itachi would just drain himself and damage his eyes even more. Amaterasu can get countered by the Diva Path, as we've seen in the War Arc, and the Preta Path can even absorb it. All Itachi's left with now is his Susanoo, which will not last for too long, and I assure you that the Pains aren't just gonna sit back with their pants down, waiting for the Totsuka Blade to stab them. They'll be spamming rockets, Summonins, Shinra Tensei left and right, Shibaku Tensei, which is something Itachi cannot escape on his own, without using Izanagi that is, which would blind one of his eyes. I'm not saying Sharingan Boy can't win this, it's just really hard to see it happen. His abilities are perfect for a 1v1, but going against 6 people who can easily counter almost anything he throws at them will make this fight extremely difficult for him. I don't believe Itachi being sick or healthy would change much, other than maybe how many Amaterasus he can use, and how long would the Susanoo last.
Now, as for healthy Itachi versus Nagato, he fares quite a bit better in this fight, right? It's a very similar fight, but he doesn't have the crazy drawbacks of being sick and losing his sight. Obviously, he doesn't have the EMS, so with prolonged usage of the Monkey Kick Sharingan, he will still lose his sight. But this is assuming that he wasn't already going blind going into this fight. Again, the Tsukuyomi may not be the best course of action here, but the main changes in the fight are that Itachi has a wider array of abilities that he can use closer together, and he might be able to abuse some of the aspects of the Mangekyo Sharingan, albeit briefly. In this case, he might be able to get rid of some of the summons with Amaterasu if he has chakra remaining, and if he has chakra remaining, he can attempt the Totsuka Blade. As I'm pretty sure you're all aware, this fight heavily relies on the fact if Itachi can land his abilities or not. As a result, you end up with Nagato winning the physical altercation aspects, but there's always a potential to get one shot. As a result, I'd give it to Nagato essentially 8 times out of 10. The main reason being that in their original Edo altercation, the main reason why Nagato got sealed away, although he got his personality suppressed, is that he was focusing on 3 different opponents, right? Itachi was debatably the least to worry about physically, and a 1-to-1 encounter would probably still go in Nagato's favor, as even if Itachi Susanoo probably wouldn't be much against, say, the Ghetto statue. And another thing to keep in mind as I'm closing off here is that Itachi was basically buffed as an Edo, which is kind of weird to say because, it's been pretty well established that Edos are actually nerfed, but in this case, Itachi was buffed because his base alive state was already so weak and frail that once he became an Edo, this was a huge nerf for him. He didn't have to worry about sickness, blindness, and he had unlimited chakra. Whereas in Nagato's case, you can still consider it a nerf because beforehand, while he was alive, although he was mainly crippled, he was using his attack potency through his paths of pain, right? Which even individually at their specific task would still be weaker than the original Nagato. So hypothetically, if we take a Nagato that didn't have to worry about the rods in his back and was physically able to be mobile, that Nagato would be stronger than the one that we saw during the Edo altercation versus Itachi's kind of vice versa. You know what I'm saying? So ultimately, still healthy Itachi versus Nagato is going to go in Nagato's favor. I know a lot of Itachi fanboys don't want to hear that, but I mean, that's kind of what it comes down to, whether Itachi can land these or not, and more likely than not, if it's a 1-to-1 altercation, he probably won't be able to land most of these, you know what I mean?
Our main event is Edo versus Edo, and no, this fight didn't happen before. Itachi did not one-shot GG Nagato. People make it seem as if Itachi just walked into the battlefield like a Giga Chad and sealed him away. The series heavily implies that Rinnegan users become more powerful once they're used to it. Does Kabuto know more about the Rinnegan than freaking Nagato? The man was casually defeating KCM Naruto and Killer Bee at the same time while being controlled. Itachi couldn't even beat the same Naruto, and you can even argue that Naruto wasn't actually trying since he wanted to get answers from him. How would this fight go? Easy. Shibaku Tensei. Itachi's only way to survive this would be Izanagi. Nagato can probably drop another one, if not, Bunsho Tein, then Soul Suck. Like I said before, Amaterasu can easily be countered by the Rinnegan's abilities, even if for one reason or another, Nagato decides to do eye contact. Tsukuyomi might not even work on him since his dojutsu is literally 2 levels above Itachi's. The only serious threat to him is the Susanoo, which is something he's more than capable of dealing with. And let's not forget the element of surprise, which would greatly help Nagato in all of these fights. Now, for all of you based Itachi worshippers, I think we can all agree that his Edo self can easily stomp most, if not all, previous Nagato forms.
Alright, so if you like more videos like this, definitely be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Also, definitely check out Greedy's channel and give him a sub for good luck, and I'll catch you in the next one.